Constitutions Tribunal late Monday night upheld the re-election of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu as the duly elected governor of the state. A three-man panel in its unanimous decision dismissed the two petitions filed by the People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate, Olajide Adediran, and that of the Labour Party, Gbadebo Rhodes Viva. In the PDP petition, the tribunal, in its judgment read by Justice Mikhail Abdullahi on behalf of the three-man panel, held that the petition of the People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate, Olajide Adediran, lacked merit, and the same was dismissed accordingly. Earlier, the tribunal addressed all the preliminary objections raised by the parties before considering the issues raised for determination. The second issue for the tribunal's determination was whether Sanwo-Olu and his deputy, Quadri Hamzat, were validly nominated by their party, the All Progressives Congress, to contest the polls. The tribunal cited relevant provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act and a plethora of decided cases to the effect that this was a pre-election issue that did not relate to the conduct of the polls being challenged. After a 10-minute break, the tribunal reconvened to consider the petition filed by the Labour Party candidate, Gbadebo Rhodes Viva. The tribunal chairman, Justice Arum Ashom, in his lead judgment, dismissed the petition filed by Gbadebo Rhodes Viva on the grounds that it lacked merit. Justice Arum Ashom, who read the unanimous judgment, held that the petition is indeed devoid of merit. In a swift reaction, the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, welcomed the judgment of the tribunal, which affirmed his election. Speaking shortly after the tribunal, which affirmed his victory in the March governorship poll, Governor Sanwo-Olu extended the olive branch to the petitioners, asking them to join hands with him to build the state to its full potential.
It's a victory for all, right? We do not want to come out here and say that somebody had lost or somebody had won. All of us, in the journey of a political trajectory like this, I imagine there are no winners, there are no losers. I still want to give an opportunity, like we did on the night in which we were declared winners, to still give an opportunity to all of the candidates, that contested with us, that if they feel, the passion that we have, and if they feel truly, really committed to serve, we could still sit with them and see in what way they want to serve the state. The state is big, the challenges are real, and the opportunities are boundless, and there's every room for everybody to contribute in one form or the other. So for us, it's really about service. For us, it's really about ensuring that all of the promises that we've given to Lagosians, we're not distracted, we'll keep to it, and this has further given us, an opportunity to double up, and to ensure that we can continue to give the real dividends of democracy.
Apparently, one of the petitioners in that election, Mr. Olajide Adediran, is not accepting that hand of fellowship, as he has rejected the tribunal's ruling dismissing his petition. The Lagos State PDP governorship candidate, popularly known as Jandor, in a statement by his spokesperson, says the judgment does not reflect the provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act 2022 on issues bordering on qualification of a candidate in an election. Jandor has already told his supporters that the party will study the judgment and decide on the next step to be taken, as according to him, it is not the end of the electoral process. The Deputy Governor of Ondo State, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, has asked an Akure High Court to stop the House of Assembly from proceeding with the impeachment plans against him. In a suit filed at the court on Monday, Mr. Aiyedatiwa asked for an order of the court to stop the State Assembly from initiating, continuing, or proceeding with the process of removing him from office. The suit was filed on his behalf by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Ebun Olu Adegboruwa. Named as defendants in the suit are the Ondo State government, the governor of the state, the Ondo State House of Assembly, the Speaker of the House and the Clerk of the House, and of course the Chief Judge of Ondo State. The Deputy Governor is seeking a declaration that the House of Assembly is not competent to proceed with the impeachment move against him because his right to a fair hearing was breached. He also requested the court to declare that no step should be taken against him without
democracy and exercise a spirit of loyalty to a cause which necessarily entails letting go in the interest of discipline and internal harmony.
Under the welfare for judicial officers, she also calls for immediate accommodation, a move that the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, promises will be treated accordingly. He also calls for the cooperation of the judiciary as the ministry rejuvenates the FCT.
We are fully committed to implementing certain reforms that will not only restore the glory of the Federal Capital Territory, but also make it a source of pride for every Nigerian, as we diligently work towards realizing the vision of rejuvenating the FCT. We implore the judiciary to also cooperate with us.
According to the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, it's important for the judiciary to improve its credibility by avoiding conflicting decisions.
For improved credibility and certainty in the judicial process through adherence to established precedents and avoidance of conflicting decisions, compliance with ethics or code of conduct for judicial officers to sustain integrity and public confidence.
The justices were also commended for their hard work and advised not to be discouraged despite criticisms from different quarters.
The members of the bench, in carrying out the functions of their office, must always bear on their shoulders the duty of ensuring that there is no appearance whatsoever of compromise on their part. Nothing should be done which creates a suspicion that there has been an improper interference with the course of justice.
Court begins its new legal year. The focal point for most of these justices and members of the bench is the welfare of the judiciary and upholding the tenets of the profession, among others. Ibanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
In the nation's capital, Abuja, fire has gutted a section of the Supreme Court complex. The inferno started at about 6 a.m. from the Justices' chambers, specifically from Chamber 5 on the 4th floor of the Supreme Court, located behind courtrooms of the Apex Court. According to the Director of Information for the court, Mr. Festus Akonde, the fire was as a result of electric spark from the Chamber 5 of the court, which is occupied by Justice Mohammed Saulawa, from where it spread to 2 other offices. Although it has been put out, the fire destroyed valuable documents and office furniture in the offices affected on the 4th floor of the Justices' chambers. Nigeria celebrates 63 years of its existence as an independent nation on October the 1st, which is just about a week from today. Against this backdrop, Channels Television, in its usual tradition, kickstarts a series of reports to highlight President Bola Tinubu's 8-point agenda to optimize Nigeria's potentials. Tonight, our business correspondent, Ini John Mekwa, shines the light on 2 of the points: economic growth and access to capital.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
On May 29, 2023, President Bola Tinubu took his oath of office. With this, he inherited an economy with debt servicing to revenue ratio of 96.3% in 2022, inflation spiraling at 22.22% for April 2023, and a GDP that had slowed to 2.31% for the first quarter of the year. President Bola Tinubu has been intentional in setting his administration's agenda, taking into consideration Nigeria's priority needs. 2 of the 8 points agenda, economic growth and access to capital, captured the factors militating the growth of the gross domestic product, which the National Bureau of Statistics had placed at 2.53% for the second quarter of 2023. Purchasing Managers Index has remained negative at 47.6% for August. Status of micro, small, and medium enterprises, which according to the 2021 MSME survey by Smidan, comprises 96.7% of all businesses in the country. It cannot be adjourned perfect. Central Bank, through its Monetary Policy Committee, has been determined to curb inflation.
The option to continue to hike the policy rate, albeit moderately, also presented a strong alternative.
In December 2022, the headline inflation rate was at 21.34% before rising to 25.8% in August 2023. Meanwhile, interest rates had been hiked from 11.5% in March 2022 to 18.5% in May 2022, and then 18.75% as of September 2023. The over 39 million MSMEs, creating over 46% of the GDP, feel the impact the most.
We realize that most of our banking institutions are not ready to give loan to this subsector in one-digit interest. And that is why it is not comfortable to a lot of them. A lot of them have been coming to Sweden that can Sweden do advocacy to the federal government in terms of the interest rate that central bank is charging through the commercial bank for the loan that they want to borrow to inject into their business.
The path of a single interest rate is the desire of President Bola Tinubu.
Interest rate needs to come down. Currently too high. Anti-people, anti-business.
However, achieving this seems a Herculean task over 100 days since the president spoke.
In economics, you cannot decree rates, interest rates. Interest rate is the price of money. And interest rate, is a very important monetary policy matter that used to manage your economy. So if you want to bring interest rate down, it will take a long time, of proper fiscal and monetary policy coordination.
Perhaps hope lies in the promise of a 125 billion naira intervention to MSMEs by the president. Economic growth is fundamentally driven by the operations of MSMEs. Consequently, energizing over 39 million businesses in that subsector is an almost a short path to economic prosperity. President Tinubu knows this.
We shall remodel our economy.
He has said it. What remains to be done is the implementation.
I assure you.
Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, we'll have more on the economy as we are joined by an economist, Dr. Abiodun Adedipe, to examine the president's economic growth plan and what Nigerians should expect from the plan. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you from Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. It's victory for Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his deputy Quadri Hamzat as the Election Petition Tribunal affirms their election, dismissing petitions of the PDP's Olajide Adediran and Labour Party's Gbadebo Rhodes Viber. Mild scare at the nation's apex court over fire outbreak that engulfed part of the Supreme Court complex. Officials assure nothing to worry about. And Hollywood Screenwriters Guild reached tentative deal with studio bosses that could end a 5-month-old strike in the world's biggest movie industry. Staying on our focus of President Bola Tinubu's economic agenda, that's 8-point agenda that is, and its implication for the economy. Well, earlier today I spoke with an economist and the Chief Executive Officer of B. Adedipe and Associates, Dr. Abiodun Adedipe. I started by asking him how this administration can make a difference in creating a better atmosphere for businesses to thrive.
Those micro and small-scale enterprises are at what we call the bottom of the pyramid. And already there are existing structures in the financial system that the government can actually, use in order to deliver this to them. But bear in mind also, as already mentioned, 3 important things there. Number 1 is that the fund is available, it's been announced. We call that the announcement effect. Then the other one is to actually do it, which means it is not only available, but it's accessible and of course, ultimately affordable. We call that democratizing capital for those at the bottom of the pyramid. Now, that will make me recommend very strongly that the government should engage the microfinance banks because they relate with people at that level in their millions. And so it's the quickest existing structure that the government can use to deliver this particular intervention.
All right, Dr. Adedepe, we have a coordinating minister of the economy. What should be the strategy to handle agencies with targets to raise revenue and plans to reduce taxes and, of course, duties, even as this administration aims to expedite access to single-digit loans for small businesses, as it were?
Well, essentially, what I will recommend here is we need to depart from the orthodox monetary, what I call the monetarist approach to economic management. And that means we cannot follow either the Western model or the East Asian model. We should look at what works for us. And that we go in the manner of asking ourselves what needs to change. If we truly want to encourage domestic manufacturing, then the tariff structure should be designed in such a way that if you import finished products that are produced locally, the duty on that should be so high. In fact, in the language of international trade, we call it punitive import duty. Then, of course, for the inputs, raw materials, if they are imported, then the tariff on those items should be as low as possible. That is what I might call a textbook approach. Okay, but it makes a whole lot of sense. That is something we need to take seriously. Now, beyond domestic manufacturing, we want to strengthen, which of course will result in job creation. There's also the other aspect of can we also strengthen manufacturing towards export? And in that one, we advise that we focus on Africa. Now, if there are opportunities for up to $3.4 trillion, regional trade within Africa, the question should be, how do we take advantage of that based on what these other African countries import? Can we begin to put incentives in those that manufacture such items so that they can compete effectively with the countries from where those other African countries import them? That is very, very important. It also connects to job creation because the challenge of Nigeria is that we'll be growing our economy, yes, they're not fast enough on the one hand, they're not also growing it inclusively and also in a sustained and sustainable manner.
How confident are you that Nigeria under this administration can perhaps begin to look inward?
Yeah, one important thing here is that government should provide leadership in terms of consuming what we produce in Nigeria. Now, the previous administration actually introduced that, but not as deep as some of us advocates want it to be. And that means we have a policy that is structured in such a way that over the next 10 years, year after year, the government will increase the percentage of its approved budget that it will deliberately commit to buy things that are made in Nigeria. So if government is going to buy vehicles, that's where we start from. We buy vehicles that are assembled in Nigeria. And of course, the quality is not the issue at the first instance. And that's the history of automobile all over the world. But Nigeria wants top quality today. And of course, we disregard the ones we produce here. And the real thing is that if we patronize what is produced here, we create opportunity for those producers to enhance the quality over time. Then also, I believe very strongly, as the tax reform committee had said, that they really don't need to introduce new taxes, but rather work very hard to bring those who are outside the tax basket to come into the basket.
So what are expectations really from this administration in handling borrowings and debt servicing going forward? Quickly.
Well, what they need to do there, in my estimation, is that there are a lot of leakages, and they're already in the direction that I want to recommend. And that is most of the state-owned enterprises that are revenue generating bring everything into the same, pillar, and that is Federal Inland Revenue Service. If we do that, then the leakages that happen with those SOEs, we can actually avoid them and deepen what the government generates as revenue. Once you increase revenue, it is simply an equation, a numerator, a denominator. Once you increase the revenue, the denominator expands. And so what we look at as the ratio in terms of debt servicing, repayment, body will improve significantly. And that is the direction I want to encourage the government to go.
Dr. Abiodun Adedepe, thank you so much for your thoughts on the news at 10. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
head to Enugu State, where the governor, Peter Mba, has inspected the site of the collapsed bridge in New Artisan area within the Enugu metropolis, calling for a new road maintenance model to guarantee a better condition and longevity of the roads. The collapsed bridge is said to have shown threats of collapse for some time before it caved in this morning, but no casualty was recorded. According to the governor, the federal government needs to consider a concession of all the federal roads in each state to the state governments for proper maintenance in conjunction with the private sector.
Today we're here witnessing a tragedy that has just occurred. We're fortunate enough that no life was lost, but this could have been, a major disaster. I mean, where lives and all that. But what has happened here today is that we're completely now cut off. This is the Port Harcourt-Enugu Express Road. So you can imagine this is a gateway to other southeast and south-south states. So the people can no longer fly on this road because of this tragedy. These threats could have been identified if we have routine or regular maintenance, right? So it shows clearly that we need to rejig the current federal road maintenance model. And perhaps the way to go is to find a way to concession these roads to the state and find a current funding model that allows for the roads to be effectively maintained. But the current model is simply not working.
Let's head to the nation's capital now, where Terry Ikumi is on standby to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Great to see you again, Terry.
Yeah, great to see you as well, Ayo. We start in Benue State, where the Commissioner for Information, Culture and Tourism, Mr. Matthew Abu, has been abducted. Some gunmen were said to have attacked the commissioner's residence in Sankara at about 8 p.m. yesterday and took him away. In a related development, also in Benue State on Saturday, the former chairman of Ukum local government area, Mr. Yowashima Eruka, has been kidnapped. Meanwhile, Governor Hyacinth Alia has condemned both abductions, describing the act as barbaric. In a statement, the governor explained that he has already detailed security agencies to immediately commence operations to ensure the release of both men. The statement further explained that while the kidnappers who took Mr. Eruka to a yet to be identified location have made contact with his family, Mr. Abu's abductors are yet to make contact with his family. Governor Elia has also called on the people of the state to remain calm, as his administration will do everything to make the state safe for residents. Meanwhile, in Zamfara State, 7 more female students of the Federal University Gusau have been rescued from their abductors by troops of Operation Hadarin Daji, who also freed 3 construction workers who were abducted last Friday. Following the operations by both land and air components of the Joint Task Force, a total of 13 students have so far regained freedom, in addition to the 3 construction workers who were carrying out a project at the university when the attack occurred. A top military source told Channels Television that the 10 others, including 3 workers of a construction company, escaped from the bandits during military rescue operations. According to the military, some of the victims were intercepted by troops during the rescue operation, while others found their way to the school authority after fleeing from captivity. In a similar development, 15 kidnapped victims were also rescued in the early hours of today. The troops acted on an intelligence report about the abduction of an unspecified number of innocent persons from the Kayan Bogo village under Bukuyum local government area of the state. A top military source told Channels Television that the troops mobilized and established a blocking position at the possible exit route of the suspects. Now, still ahead on the news at 10, Senate to screen CBN Governor nominee Yemi Cardoso and 4 nominees for the office of Deputy Governors at the Apex Bank on Tuesday. That's on Business News. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the news at 10. Now, ahead of the November 11, 2023 governorship election in Kogi State, candidates of opposition parties have met in Abuja with the aim of dislodging the ruling All Progressives Congress. Addressing journalists after a meeting which was held behind closed doors, the candidate of the African Democratic Congress, Mr. Leke Abejide, says the meeting is aimed at uniting opposition parties in Kogi State in order to present a common front. The meeting, which is the second convened by the Conference of Opposition Parties in Kogi State, was attended by candidates of the People's Democratic Party, New Nigeria People's Party, and the African Democratic Congress.
3 of us are here, as you can see us. The rest couldn't make it, maybe as a result of engagement somewhere else. But as the senator has said, we are going to be united. We are already united as opposition party's candidate against the third-term agenda. It's not about the APC matter. Against the third-term agenda of Governor Yaya Bello. And we are working together, and by God's grace, we are going to now find a common ground to unseat him. We will keep on meeting, and when at appropriate time, you will hear from us.
Now, as part of efforts to ensure increased enrollment at all levels, the federal government has announced plans to allocate 25% of the nation's budget to the education sector. The Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, who announced this in Abuja, says the federal government is equally determined to ensure equal access to tertiary education by all qualified persons.
Boosting enrollment opportunities for persons with disabilities in the Nigerian tertiary education system is the focus of this conference, organized by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board. The need for equal opportunity and access to tertiary education dominates the discussion.
The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board is committed to facilitating not only access to higher education in Nigeria, but also to ensure equity and inclusivity in the process.
We're here to reflect on inclusive education. And I would like to let the Honourable Minister know that God has brought him at a very important part of the history of education in Nigeria.
The National Universities Commission is pledging to introduce new courses to address the issue of economic challenges.
The NUC, as a partner in this novel concept, will be ready and willing to introduce courses and programs that will enhance national capacity towards providing equal opportunities for persons living with disability.
I hope next year, Honorable Minister, they will take up 2 other cases that are mitigating against access to higher education. One of them is the economically challenged. The second one are the security challenged. Still in the Northwest, there is a polytechnic. Between 2015 to date, student population has dropped by 90%.
The Minister of Education lights up the occasion with news of increased budgetary allocation.
Even more importantly, or equally importantly, right from his campaign manifesto and policy statement, the President had stated his commitment to provide up to 25% of the national budget for education, if we come up with the right policies.
The 2-day conference is aimed at analyzing the challenges of inclusive education, especially as it affects persons with disabilities, and possible solutions to change the narrative.
That's it from the nation's capital. Back to you, Ayo.
Many thanks, Terry. To Labour Matters, the Trade Union Congress, the TUC, has embarked on a protest in Lagos over the ban on the operations of its affiliate union, the Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria, by the state government. Union members gathered at the muster point in Ikeja for the one-day protest, which they say will lead to the withdrawal of service. In its response, the Lagos state government says the protest is not needed, that the unionists should rather embrace dialogue. Our correspondent, Darido, tells us more.
Clad in this signature yellow outfit, the unionists started the work from the Lagos State Teaching Hospital axis amid heavy security presence. Alausa, the seat of power, is the terminal point, but it's still a long walk to the destination. They're letting their banners do the talking as they walk Aminam. An injury to one, an injury to all. That's the basis of this protest as the TUC mobilizes affiliate unions to protest against the ban of Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria. They say they are heading for a total shutdown after this.
Protests that have gone beyond this phase, right from time immemorial. Are you with me, sir?
After walking for about 2 hours, they arrived at the State Assembly but met with a brick wall. It took minutes of arguments and back and forth before they are allowed into the complex.
We are organizing this protest today to further draw home our demand, to further draw the attention of not just Lagos State, but the attention of well-meaning Nigerians to what is happening in Lagos. And for us, we believe that having men and women in this honorable house, you should be able to call the Lagos State government into order. If you cannot look at the law and understand what the law is, I believe we have people here of courage who could look at it and say, no, you cannot, at the end of the day, invade a house and you remove everybody in the house and their properties, you took away their entire properties. It is fundamentally wrong.
Be rest assured that the message is going to be delivered to Mr. Speaker. I'm going to make sure that once we collect it officially, it's going to be forwarded to the office of the clerk so that, well, probably during our next sitting or however the Speaker deems fit, he would attend to these issues. And the representatives of these various groups put together will come in based on the Mr. Speaker's instruction and come in and have a discussion on the way forward.
The state government in a statement says the TUC-led protest is a plan to twist the government. In September 2022, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu ordered the suspension of Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria, citing violence in some parts of the state. Dari Ido, Channels Television News.
The healthcare industry in Nigeria takes another bold step forward with the unveiling of Gynoscope Specialist Hospital in the Lekki area of Lagos State. The idea behind the facility, according to the Medical Director and Chief Executive Officer, Professor Jude Okoye, is to provide top-notch medical services to patients in a homely and comfortable atmosphere. He hopes that this effort will impact medical tourism and stem the surge in the emigration of medical professionals.
Welcome to the heart of Lekki, Lagos, where cutting-edge medical care is set to meet comforts.
As you can see, by the grace of God, to His glory and honor, we have been able to complete this project here today.
The opening of Gynoscope Specialist Hospital in Lekki provides a boost to the healthcare industry, judging by the state of the art medical equipment on the ground.
Initially, we were involved in just managing women, but now we are delving into management of neurological diseases, spine surgeries, cases of cardiovascular surgeries, knee replacement surgeries, and much more. So we are bringing the latest advancement in technology closer home to our people.
Here, the management says it believes that a great ambience plays a crucial role in the recovery of patients, a reason it pays a deliberate attention to design and setup, which has become a unique selling point for Gynoscope.
We've created an ambience where you don't feel like you are in a hospital. You feel like you are at home. It is known that there's a lot of psychology when it comes to getting well from an ailment. And I must add, people might look at this building and think it's probably only for the rich. No, it's not. Like I said, the whole idea is to create that atmosphere where you feel at home. I consider it significant at this critical moment because, as we are aware, a lot of people are leaving the country, the so-called Japa syndrome. People are leaving because they feel they cannot access the best and the latest medical technology in Nigeria, which is not true.
For keen watchers of the medical director, his work ethics will ensure best medical practices.
You just need to step inside and see the quality and the standards that they have here in this hospital. But again, for me, the most important thing is the man behind. It's Professor Okwe.
I'm happy here today because we've been able to open and to start running this project.
As Gynoscope opens its door to all, the management assures Nigerians home and abroad of exceptional service delivery.
Time now for some business news with Joker Rogers.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Welcome to Business News. All is set at the Senate for the screening of the candidate nominated by President Bola Tinubu for the position of the central bank governor and deputies that will work alongside him. Lawmakers will receive the former chairman of the board of Citibank Nigeria and 4 other nominees at the Red Chambers when they resume plenary tomorrow after a 2-month recess, which began on August 7. Nominees for the CBN deputy governorship positions are Mrs. M.M. Osoro, Mr. Mohammed Datijo, Mr. Philip Picazo, and Dr. Bala Bello. The screening is expected to pave the way for their first Monetary Policy Committee meeting in October. The London Stock Exchange played host to the Nigerian government officials and business leaders led by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edu, as he opened the trading day on the British bourse. Discussions were held with current and potential investors on business opportunities and vision for the future at the Non-Deal Roadshow, which is organized by the Nigerian Exchange Limited. The Nigerian Exchange Limited declared its readiness to lend its support to the federal government's objective of wooing investors to the country by mobilizing capital to address existing challenges and foster wealth creation for Nigerians. And at the domestic stock markets, which begins the final trading day of September in the red due to profit taken by investors, Willie Bong tells us more about this.
Thanks, Joker. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. It's a bloody open for the NGX today. The NGX benchmark index kicked off with a 0.66% close in negative territory. No thanks to profit taking in Dangote Sugar and some of the Tier 1 banking stocks. Now, Access Holding led that pack for the banking sector. Last week, the bank announced an interim dividend of 30 kobo to the disappointment of many investors and traders who have been expecting more when compared to what its counterparts had declared. Some analysts did say the market was going to punish the stock, and punish it did as investors and traders sold up 130 million units of Access Holdings worth over 1.78 billion naira. Investors, however, favored UBA. The stock rose today by almost 1/3% to close at 17 naira 50 kobo. With MPC postponed and exchange rates going south, traders are cautious and await policy direction to make more profitable decisions. Now it's Willie Bong signing out.
That's Business News tonight. Ayotunde, back to you.
Thank you so much, Joker. Some television shows in the United States are likely to be back on air in October as screenwriters and studio bosses end the impasse that has paralyzed the entertainment industry and left many viewers without their favorite programs. Here's Simon Pusick with more on this and other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Screenwriters in the United States say they have reached a tentative deal with studio bosses that could see them end a strike that has lasted nearly 5 months. The Writers Guild of America said it was exceptional with meaningful gains and protections for writers. WGA members must still have a final say. Hollywood writers are striking in a row over pay and the use of artificial intelligence in the industry. Stranger Things and The Last of Us are among the shows which have been paused. It is the longest strike to affect Hollywood in decades and has halted most film and TV production.
It's been around 150 days of striking thus far since May. The mood, as soon as the tentative deal was announced, was one of ecstasy. I heard that at certain film festivals there were cheers going on. Also on social media, we saw a vast flurry of tweets. I think a lot of people have suffered because of the strike. A lot of people have been out of work, and news that we might get the engine moving again is just life-saving for so many people.
The Italian mafia boss Matteo Messina Denaro, who was one of the country's most wanted men until his capture earlier this year, has died. The 61-year-old was thought to be a boss of the notorious Cosa Nostra mafia and spent 30 years on the run before he was detained in January. He was being treated for cancer at the time of his arrest and was moved from prison to hospital last month. Denaro was thought to have been responsible for numerous murders. He was tried and sentenced to life in jail in absentia in 2002 for crimes including involvement in the 1992 killing of anti-mafia prosecutors. A growing stream of ethnic Armenian refugees are fleeing Nagorno-Karabakh following Azerbaijan's seizure of the disputed region last week. More than 3,000 people have so far crossed into Armenia from the enclave, which is home to a majority of some 120,000 ethnic Armenians. They left after the government in Yerevan announced plans to move those made homeless by the fighting. It also warned that those who stayed could face ethnic cleansing. The Odessa prosecutor's office has released photographs and videos showing damage inflicted to seaport buildings, including a former hotel following an overnight Russian airstrike. The Odessa regional governor said some grain storage facilities were also hit. No deaths were reported in the attack. The Russian strike was the latest in a series of missile and drone strikes which Kyiv says are intended to prevent Ukraine, a major grain producer and exporter, shipping its agricultural products to the world. Dusty samples from what's been described as the most dangerous known rock in the solar system have been brought back to Earth. The American Space Agency NASA landed the materials in a capsule that came down in the west desert of Utah State. The samples had been scooped up from the surface of asteroid Bennu in 2020 by the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft. NASA wants to learn more about the mountainous object, as samples are likely to provide fresh insights into the formation of the solar system 4.6 billion years ago, and possibly even how life got started on our planet.
So I'm going to be looking for the basics. Are there clay minerals there? Are there carbonate minerals? Are there organic molecules? Do we see the iron oxides, the other things that we predicted on the asteroid surface? It really is to give us a sense of what are we dealing with? Are we way out of the box in terms of what we built this big plan around? Or does it look like, yeah, we got it pretty close, there's some surprises, but we can still continue with the sample analysis plan that we laid out?
Guests at a Canadian amusement park have been released after they were stuck upside down on a ride for nearly 30 minutes. Those on the ride could be heard shouting, "Get us down." Maintenance staff did finally bring the ride down just after 11 p.m. after it inverted at 10:40 p.m. Two of those stuck reported chest pain and loss of feeling in their legs. And Chile's National Geology and Mining Service has raised the alert level for the Villarrica volcano from yellow to amber, citing a gradual increase in volcanic activity. One of South America's most active volcanoes, Villarrica has a 200-meter wide open crater and last erupted in 2015, sparking a mass evacuation but ultimately no injuries. An amber alert means there is greater probability that an eruption will take place in the coming days or weeks. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. And back home, we begin with powerlifting, where peacemaker Azwegbulam is back in Nigeria after becoming the first African to win a gold medal at a multi-sport event in the 69 kg weightlifting category at the Invictus Games in Germany, a feat he's quite excited about. The Invictus Game, founded by the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, in 2014, is held every 2 years as a way to help the rehabilitation of wounded servicemen and women through sports. And to the Nigeria Premier Football League, where after 2 postponements, it has announced that the 2023-2024 season will begin this weekend with curtain raiser between 3SC and Plateau United at the Lagos Salami Stadium in Ibadan, Oyo State. The elite division, which was earlier scheduled to begin on August the 26th, was moved to September the 9th before it was rescheduled for September the 30th, and each participating club is to receive 10 million naira as take-off grant, while the champions will go home with a whopping 150 million naira. And that's it on sports. Ayotunde, it's back to you.
Many thanks, Jeffrey. And the main news again. The Lagos Governorship Election Petition Tribunal today affirmed the election of Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his deputy Quadri Hamzat after dismissing the petitions of PDP's Olajide Adediran and Labour Party's Gbadebo Rhodes Viva. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. You have a good night.